And welcome back, everybody. We are here for episode 4 of my in-depth build on this Hampden Mark 1. And this episode, we're going to start doing some of the final assembly of the interior parts. I am limited with how much I can get done. I'm waiting on masks to arrive. Excuse me, some masking to arrive for all the canopy parts, and I have to assemble all of this nose before I can start, and especially the lower windows, before I can start assembling everything. So we'll get started. I have a couple of things inside the fuselage I need to start getting glued together. Some inside the frameworks inside. I can assemble some of the sub-assemblies. I can start getting some weathering done on the leather seats. If you haven't seen episode 3, I'll put a link to it up above. Episode 3 was all of the interior weathering, all the black wash and the dry brushing and all of the detailing inside to get it ready. All I have left to do, as I mentioned, was just make the leather seats look a little bit more like leather, and I'll show you the trick I use for that in a little bit. But at that note, let's get right into it. Let's start the assembly of the interior of this kit. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, part of this assembly, is we're going to glue these little frames down in the sides. There's nothing that goes behind it, and it's really the next thing I need to do. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to start with the Tamiya white liquid cement, the thicker stuff. As I've said before, I've converted this. I've used the smaller brush from the extra thin on this, and it just allows me to get into the tighter spots and not have to worry too much about getting glue everywhere. So I'm going to go through and put a little dab of this in every little kind of pocket here that they sit in, and I'll do the same thing at the bottom. There's 3 little pockets that they sit in at the bottom. And then I can place it in there, and then once it kind of bites and starts to lock in, I can come back after and add let's see, this goes this way. I can come back and add a little bit of liquid glue to lock everything down exactly where it needs. This gives me the freedom to play with it. You can see these have to be kind of tucked down in nice and tight. You want to make sure they're seated, and that white glue will kind of hold it. It's got a bit of stickiness, and it'll get that piece locked down in place and hold it there while I go around and play with everything. And you know what? That's it. It's that easy. I'll now hit it with a little bit of the Tamiya Extra Thin, just in the corners, make sure it soaks down into everything. And then I don't touch anything. If you come back and touch the plastic after you've applied that Tamiya Extra Thin, there's a really good chance you're either gonna squirt out a whole bunch or you're gonna start affecting, especially considering I don't scrape the paint off. You don't want that. The paint will actually soften and kind of go gooey. If you squeeze it too much, it'll all come out. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue down in there. That'll hold it. I also want to get some back here. These 3 lines back here, there's no little pockets that they sit in. They just kind of sit flush on the bottom of the fuselage. So I want to go through and make sure that that has a touch of glue at the bottom, just so they have something to grab onto and hold it in place. And that's that. Now I'll just gently make sure everything is still seated. I don't want to squeeze too hard, like I said, and force the glue out, but this just makes sure everything is locked in there nice and tight. And that's it. Now I'll let that sit. We'll get the other side done. Same process. Add a little bit of the Tamiya liquid, the white bottle. Kind of a little too much glue in there. Get the little pockets soaked. I also give it a little bit of time, as I've mentioned before. That just allows the glue to kind of work. It'll soften, because I don't scrape the paint, it'll soften up the paint a little bit. And then when you do put the piece in place, it will actually hold it in there and lock it in. And then we'll grab the part. And then I'm just going to go around and start pushing these down, making sure they are seated properly. This one just was a little tight on the bottom. I just flexed the plastic a little bit, allowed that to seat. And then again, I'll come up here. I'll make sure these are still down tight, that they haven't moved at all. That ensures everything is going to get lined up exactly where we want it to. You can see these bottom ones weren't seated properly. A good little tuck and everything is exactly where I want it. So same thing again, get the liquid glue, come along and hit all of those edges with some liquid glue. Just make sure all of that soaks down, capillaries in around. That'll just lock everything in. Way too much glue on that one, but luckily, as long as you don't come by and smear it, it's not really going to affect anything. It's if you start playing with it, you'll have the chance of smearing the paint. If you just leave it alone, the paint will eventually dry again and resettle and you won't have any lasting effects. So just the less you play with it, the better. That's why you take your time, get it where you want it, and then hit the glue. And as long as you don't touch it too much after, it'll stay exactly where you put it. So I'm just taking a quick check, seeing how that looks. I think that frame looks really, really nice. I'll zoom you in a little bit so you can kind of see how it looks. Get some good light down in here. Now that you're in tight, I can move my lamps. So you can see, you're not going to see much just because this actually lives here. So that covers most of that rear fuselage. But looking down from inside the top turret, you'll see how that kind of, this is a really bad angle. Anyways, you can kind of see how there's a pocket of shadow down in there, and that's how it is. And if you're looking up from inside the tail area, up through here, you'll see all that frame and that hollowness. And that's exactly how the real plane was. How do I get the light? There you go. There. I mean, you can see it from in there. You're not going to actually see that, but when you're looking up through the little tail turret, you'll see the shadows. This is not easy, man. There we go. When you're looking up through the tail turret, you'll see that, and that's the look I want. So it's exactly what I was hoping it would look like. So now I just have to let it dry. And then we can come back again and play around with the next little things. So yeah, right off the bat, this is a really, really well-engineered kit. That tucks in pretty much exactly as one would hope. And then again, you can see when you put the fuselage floor in place, how well everything, there we go, how well everything tucks in there together. Like I said, you've got these tucked down into these little pockets. This little gusset sits exactly where it needs to sit. I mean, it looks like structure. It doesn't look off. I can't believe how well this is all going together. I'm probably going to come through with a bit more black wash up in here and just hit it a little later. But I mean, I don't know what else to say about this kit. This is one of the nicest kits I have ever built. Everything is just, all the engineering is perfect. There's no gaps, there's no weirdness. Everything just tucks in exactly where you'd expect it to tuck in and fit exactly where you would expect it to fit. Again, I'll bring my lamps down here just because I can. That looks beautiful. I don't know what else to say. Kudos to the ICM team for producing this kit. It looks spectacular. And the good news is I can still add all those clear pieces in here after the fact. It doesn't affect the final build by putting any of this in. So yeah, we will, man, I don't even know what else to say. The ammo cans, as I mentioned once before, I'll put the ammo cans in, significantly later in this process. Unfortunately, like I really gotta start looking at clear parts. I can do a little bit more assembly in the cockpit. But you know what I will do right now, just while we're waiting, and just because I do eventually need to do it, let's do the black wash on all the leather parts and the toilet. Because it means I can start gluing some of that stuff together. Yeah, also I did get the flat coat done on the instrument panel. So it's dead flat now. Same with all of this, actually. The radio panel, all of that's dead flat. I'm just letting it dry a bit, and then I can start assembling that interior assembly with the radio. But I'm gonna get my panel wash, my Tamiya black panel wash. I don't need that. I don't need that, and I don't need that, and I don't need that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna go too crazy with this, but if you just apply this very lightly on the leather, it gives it a little bit of dark and shadow, and it makes it look just a hair glossy. And similarly to what you can do, I don't have a Kleenex out, with the wash, the water-based wash. If you unload the brush, you can come back and pick up a little bit too much if you have it. But I think I'm just, you know, let's get you in. You know what? I never know whether I'm in too close or out too far for what I'm doing. But that gives you just the tiniest bit of dark on that leather, and it gives it some grain, and then it's going to dry. And we'll come back here in a couple of minutes and you'll see what that looks like. But when it does dry, it gives it, like I said, leather has a grain to it. It's not a solid color. You've got a bit of variation in it. And this is what actually gives that look to it when you apply this. It just darkens it a little bit, gives it that little bit of grain that you're looking for in real leather. And it's gonna stay slightly glossy when it's all done. And just like real leather, it has a bit of a shine to it. Leather is not a dead flat. It's not dead flat. Oh, this one's gonna be a pain in the ass. I'll hold it from here. So same thing. Let's just get the gloss on, the black wash, I should say. And you don't have to be too careful with it. You want that variation in color. And I'm gonna bring it across the top. Try not to get too much on the green. Like, that's it. That's all you need to do. This is that little gunner stool. One more thing I'm gonna do, and while I have this panel wash out, I'm gonna do a little bit up on the front here. This ammo box I find is looking a little flat. It doesn't give me the pop that I really want. So I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of this, and it's just going to accentuate the little panel line that's there. Just like that. You can see how that now has a slightly more shadow to it, and it's just going to allow, when you're looking in that clear nose, that's going to pop a lot more than it would have before. The other thing I'm gonna do, not that you're gonna see much of it in the final kit, these little holes, I'm going to put a little dollop inside. I want those to really pop on the final kit. I think that's it for now. I'll do the same thing on this side. Actually, you know what I do want to do on this side? Same thing here. The 3 little holes on this piece, I don't know what it is, but I want those to be really dark shadows. The other thing I want to do is this handle that comes down here. I was trying to make it pop, and it looks very flat. So same thing, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of this, and it's just going to allow all of, it's actually not doing what I wanted it to do. I might have to paint the handle I might paint it aluminum actually, the little handle at the end, just to allow that to pop a little bit. And then little things like I want a little bit of a pop right in here. I'm just going to touch inside that corner. There we go. That's going to cause that to darken up. And I'm just going to, you can start to selectively pick where you want a slightly darker pop of shadow. I think I'm going to do the same thing over here. Is just put a little bit of a pop right in this corner. It's going to be a very visible corner, and I want it to have a little bit more shadow than we're currently getting. Perfect. So that's about it. Now, like I said, we'll let that dry. I might actually have to hit the inside of this with a bit of flat coat, just because the glue is a little shiny, and where I've just applied that black wash is a little shiny. Yeah, I might have to come back and hit it with just the slightest amount. Actually, you know what I'm also going to do? I'm going to hit the floor of this cockpit, just because I want that, especially in the open cockpit, I want a good amount of pop on some of these details. So I'm just going to put a bit more pop around this. Same thing over here. And same thing over here. But yeah, I just want these to pop a little bit. I want it so when you look down from inside the down from inside the cockpit, it's going to, that's already basically dry. I'm going to do a little bit down inside the seat too. I'm going to hit up that, and I want to hit up these corners. There, I think that's good. When that's sitting in there, when you're looking down from the top of the open cockpit and you're looking down inside that, I think that just enough pop and shadow to make that look really nice. Okay, so we'll let that dry. I will hit that with a flat coat, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more work. We might actually start to assemble this. So yeah, we'll be back in a little bit. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start getting some sub-assemblies assembled. I'm going to start with the main cockpit floor. As you saw, I went through and I added a little bit of extra wash in there just to darken some of those shadows, which looks really good. Same in the seat. This will need a flat coat at some point, just to dull off, to flatten out the shine. Actually, is there any shine from the gloss, from that black? I keep calling it gloss. Yeah, there's a bit of a shine from that black wash. So I'm going to have to give a flat coat to that at some point. I think the fuselage sides also have a bit of shine to them. Yeah, that was the issue. They have a bit of shine to them from the black wash, as well as down here from the glue. So both of these fuselage sides are going to need to be hit with just the slightest touch of flat coat. And same with this part. So let's get these assembled. I'm also going to assemble this rear shelf part that includes the radio area. So luckily I have most of this assembled already, and I did most of it before I did the weathering pass. So this just needs, actually, you know what? I'm going to put the glue on the seat part, because that will actually have the pockets. That way I know the glue is going into the right place. And then I believe the glue goes onto here and here. I'm still going to hit it with a bit of liquid glue after the fact, the Tamiya Extra Thin. So not terribly worried if I don't have perfect glue coverage, but that's going to sit. Yeah, see, I had the glue put in the wrong. Oh no, I actually had the glue put in the right place. There's multiple. I have to say the engineering of this kit is amazing. This seat, which looks relatively fragile, actually has like 2 up front 2 down here where I added that glue, and then 2 more back here with these little brackets holding it all together. So it has multiple, like at least 6 solid mounting glue surfaces. And once you see it assembled, you can barely tell where the glue surfaces are. It's hard to see where the molds break down and where it all splits up. So it's really, really well engineering. I got to give them credit. They need to have like annual scale model awards where manufacturers are called out for their quality and their engineering, like the Oscars, but for model production. I think that'd be a good way to honor these people, because this is just, I don't think I could have engineered this any better. So that seat's glued on. I'm going to glue the yoke in as well. I think this might need a tiny bit more dry brushing highlights to get the details to pop. We'll see once I have it glued in and I start to test assemble the fuselage, how well this looks. It also sticks up quite a bit, so you don't have to worry too much about highlights. I find highlights work well for things that are hidden in shadows that you want to have pop, but this is already going to be sort of visible. I'm going to give it just the slightest amount of forward angle. As I've mentioned, I do want to have the elevators and the tail section folded down, so I want the yoke angled forward just slightly, not crazily, just enough that when you look down inside of it, you can tell that it is pushed forward and does sort of line up with that elevator position. So that's going to be that. I'll let that dry. I'm not going to hit it with liquid glue right now with the extra thin. I keep calling the extra thin liquid glue, and I just keep calling this Tamiya. I'm going to hit this with Tamiya, and I'm going to hit it with liquid. I don't know why. It's just in my brain. That's what makes sense. That is a nice little sub-assembly. Ideally, it would have seat belts. I don't have any photo etch. I'm not going to go through that process. I mean, as I said, other than, like, I don't want to do anything crazy. I want to build this out of the box. The only thing I'm going to change are the decals to do the 408 Squadron. Hopefully I actually hear back from the guy and I get those aftermarket decals, because that's going to be another wall I'm going to run into where I'm not going to have proper decals. And I really, really don't want to go down the road of masking and painting the markings on this one. So hopefully I hear back from him. Ideally. Okay, so then this surface here, this goes like this, and then this goes like this. So let's get a little bit of glue. This is also one of those things where the white, Tamiya white, is just going to kind of hold it, and then I'll hit it with the liquid glue, the Tamiya green, the extra thin, and the extra thin is what's really going to hold this in position. It's what's going to bind it all up at the end. There we go. That's got a nice tight bond. Now I got to figure out how this lower panel fits together. Does it slide in from the back? Oh, it slides in from the back. Well, would you look at that? Oh, look at that. Yeah. See, there's a little lip at the back. This is cool engineering. Okay, see, this is where I would never have caught that. So I'm going to put the glue on the back side of this, on this little lip. I mean, ideally, I guess I should have glued this together, this little table on first, then glued the upper piece in later. But I love the engineering on this. So many of your glue surfaces and seams are hidden in spots that you can't see them. So I'm going to put away this. Now I'm going to hit it. There's a couple of different places I can put this glue. The big one is here along the bottom. I want that glue to flood down into that seam where there's the little step on the back of the radio face. But then on this side, this little frame sits on top of that little bump out on the radio itself. So I want to get the glue down inside there. I'm just going to kind of flood this whole bottom area. And then again, once that's done, just kind of let it sit. Don't play with it too much. I'm just giving it a little tiny bit of stickiness, but then that problem is now I'm pushing that out. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to, let's see, what side do they normally want this glued onto? They want it glued onto the other side. I'm just going to check alignment here. I'm going to put this where it belongs and just make sure that everything, oh man, that is beautiful. All those frames line up with these frames. Looks like a complete structure in there. And it's great because there's no wasted plastic. You don't need to mold an entire radio box. You only need to mold the front face of the radio. And the way that that's engineered together, it looks the part. You'll never know that there isn't a back half of that when it's all assembled. It completely sells it. Completely sells it. And you get nice positive location on everything. Lots of great gluing surfaces. Yeah. That's nice. Like I said, once you hit that with a bit of flat coat and you knock down the shininess from the glue, this doesn't even need any of that. I do need to dry brush the top. I did not. I actually thought this went the other way around. So I had this painted the bottom side and I never did the top. So I added the black wash on the top after. I got to go through and still do the dry brushing on this top part. And I also realized I forgot to dry brush the back side of the instrument panel because that is visible when the instrument panel is installed. You actually can look up from inside the nose and see the back side of the instrument panel. So I got to get that back side weathered and the top of that weathered in order to ensure it all looks right. I think I'm pretty much done with sub-assemblies. I guess I could probably glue. Do I glue the toilet in? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna glue the toilet in. I'm gonna have to find a way to go through and take some really nice pictures of all of this. I put the glue, I just did that off frame. I know, I'm sorry. I put the glue on the inside of the ring because it's gonna sit down over top of that ring. So you want the glue on the inside. And then, oh man, that was almost perfect on the first try. You just wanna make sure that the hinge for the toilet seat faces the wall because that's where the hinge would be. And then same thing, I'm just gonna hit the bottom lip of that with a touch of liquid glue. Let that capillary all the way around. Get it on this side too, just to be sure. And then give it a good squeeze. Make sure it's all gonna lock down. I'm actually gonna do a little bit more of the panel line wash in here. I really wanna hit up all of these panel lines here. And then these, whatever these are, I don't actually know what they are. There's little hatches or little covers here. I want to make sure that gets hit with a nice touch of panel wash. I want to make sure those are going to pop. And then same up here. Actually, I should probably check and make sure there isn't anything that glues into that top part. There is. Okay, so scratch that. I was gonna say I wanted to put a little bit of black wash down inside these little pockets, but those actually have the frame that holds the machine gun goes in there. So I don't, because then it's gonna make it even harder for the glue to harden. So I think that's about it for now. Oh, you know what I can do? You know what I can do? I can glue those little oxygen bottles into place. Get off me. And then I think that and that both go on the clear parts. So I'm going to glue on that little oxygen. I'm calling them oxygen bottles. I don't know what else they would be. I'm going to call these oxygen bottles. I can glue these into place. And then I'm going to put all this aside to dry, and I'll hit all the flat coat. I'll do that little bit of weathering that I was talking about, and I'm going to hit it with some flat coat off camera. But there's one more thing I'm going to do just before we do that. First things first, I got to get this in here. I want to make sure the bottles are square. Something like that. And then hit it again with a touch of liquid glue. Just to get it all. And I know it's cement, and I know they're both liquid. Let me be the person I want to be. Okay, we'll let that dry. And just because I am who I am, and I can't help myself, I want to see what this is all going to look like. So if we start, those oxygen bottles sit like that. This cockpit frame sits in right there. The gunners, I wish there was a better way to have this cockpit like actually sit in place instead of flopping around, but it is what it is. This bulkhead goes in right there, the toilet's in place, and then this fits in. Man, like I don't know how else to say. This is probably one of the nicest kits I have ever worked on. I just want to try to get this to all hold its shape long enough so I can get a view and I can show everyone out there, all of you guys, what this actually looks like. If I can just get that to, like, that is beautiful. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. It's going to be fun trying to get the pictures of this because everything just wants to kind of fall out of place. It doesn't want to hold its shape. And I want to try to get pictures of like both sides of the fuselage with everything mounted. I'm probably just going to have to lay it down and take the pictures of it as it's kind of like sitting here in this position and just shoot my camera. Oh, that's not even in the right place. That's half my problem. There we go. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to kind of hold it and shoot straight down with my camera and get all the different angles, but very, very, very happy with all of that. Yeah, so the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start trimming the clear pieces that I need for the sides of the noses. And I really don't want to get too far ahead with these, and apologies for the plastic sounds. Which one do I need? Nope. Nope. I need the other one. Yep, I need that one. I don't want to go too far ahead with this. As I mentioned, I do need to ensure that I have the masks in place before I get too far ahead with this. Just so that I don't ruin. Oh, I hate trimming clear plastic. You've got to be really careful. Clear plastic has a habit of being extremely brittle, and it's really easy to crack it or take a chunk out. It doesn't like to cut, it likes to just fracture. And then you just gouge a chunk of plastic out and you just ruined your canopy. And for something this new, you know, I don't want to have to take a chance of ordering a second full kit or waiting on the possibility of getting a replacement clear sprue from ICM. So I want to be very careful with all of this. You always want to make sure when you're doing stuff like this, don't have anything open. No paint, no glue, nothing. You don't want to knock anything over and ruin this. Now, the other issue that I see is they've put some of these sprue gates right over top of, there's like a notched ledge that allows the plastic to sit together, and their sprue gates are covering that notch. So I don't know how well all the parts are going to fit together, because if they're supposed to sit down inside that notch and the notch has a sprue gate in it, it's going to be a pain to clean up. But what we'll do is I'll do my best without scratching the actual plastic. I might have to switch to one of my metal files to get down in there. There we go, close enough. And then you can start to see how how big that nose section is when all of that is visible and clear. There's a lot you can see up inside that nose. Hence why you want to make sure everything is as nice and perfect as possible. And this is where, like I'm saying, I want to be super careful with this, because I don't want to get all this glued together and then ruin the plastic. So I want to be able to glue these in and as immediately, as fast as possible, start to mask them off and get them protected. But yeah, you know what? Let's leave it there. I'm going to get the rest of the black wash that I wanted to do and the weathering cleaned up and the flat coat done, and I'll get this piece cleaned up, and then we'll come back and we'll start seeing where we go from there. Because there's still pieces that I need to glue to the inside of these. Like I believe this one is that one. So this one has the big, this one has this big guy that lives on it. And I got to check how all that fits, because I don't see how that is supposed to fit on there. Like, this has got massive sprue gates on the back that I think I have to clean up, and I'm going to have to repaint this because that doesn't fit on that side either. This one's got this one. Yeah, see, you're going to see that panel. You're going to see that panel through the back of the window, so I got to make sure all of that is. I got to dry brush the back side of that. This side, I'm pretty sure these are not supposed to be there. So I'm going to have to trim those off, clean everything up, and then repaint it, re-weather it. The pins do line up, so you got to make sure you get them on the right side. So yeah, I'm going to do all this after. Let's let the glue dry on what I just assembled. Let everything solid up nice. Make sure it's not going to start playing around and moving on me. And we'll come back and I'll start cleaning some stuff up, prepping off camera, and we'll come back at the end and we'll start working on these windows. Okay, well, we've gone ahead. I've got all of the parts here flat coated. So I cleaned up, black washed a few things I wanted to black wash down inside here. All these panel lines here. I cleaned everything up, got it all flat coated, so everything that was shiny is no longer quite as shiny, especially down in here where, like I said, I had those glue residue is all gone. It looks really, really good. Yeah. So the next steps, I'm going to start working on those clear parts again. I'm going to set all this aside. And I did finish cleaning up those clear parts. I'll get them out. I stuck them in a Ziploc bag so they wouldn't go missing. Now the next step is, like there's a lot that goes on in here. It's gonna be really fun trying to get all this together properly, but c'est la vie. Still not the happiest with those sprue gates that are sitting right in that little lip. So there's a little L channel here for the pieces to go. And if you run your nail along that L channel, you hit right here. There's a bump, and right here. Yeah, that's gonna be fun to clean up later to get everything to fit together properly. Anyways, what I need to do now is I need to have these pieces glued into the inside. I wanna make sure I get them right because they are 100% possible to screw it up. The pins are exactly the same size and are exactly the same distance apart. So this one has this piece and it goes that way. And then this side has, I gotta go all the way back to step 4, has this side and it goes that way. Okay, so as I said, I cleaned up this particular piece here, had those really big sprue gates on the backside. And that would mean that the part would not fit on here at all. So I've cleaned those up, sanded them down, repainted the black, and dry brushed all 4 sides of this, because realizing that once this gets glued into place, this is why this is gonna be such an absolute pain, is I have to glue this onto the inside of this clear spot without getting, that doesn't even fit right. There's something not right here. Do I have this the right way? What happens if I flip it around? Does it fit? It does fit better. Did I have it backwards the entire time? Yeah, I did actually. Look at that. So there's a little notch at the top, and those notches actually are needed to clear the curve of the glass. At least on the front it is. So that the pins will actually lock in properly. What you need to be aware of is from the back side, you can see the back side of that black panel from outside the window. When you're looking through the window, you see the back of that panel. And I don't entirely know if that's supposed to be like that, because that's a clear window. But as I said, I've cleaned up that plastic as best I can, and I weathered all the way around it. So there's no going back now. This part's going to be glued into place. So let's get a little bit of what the Tamiya white. I'm just going to do the tiniest of dollops. This can go south very fast if these pins don't line up the first time, because if they smear the glue everywhere, then I am not recovering from that at all. And I think I got it. There. First try. No smearing on the clear plastic. So that is going to dry, and I'm not doing anything else to that. I'm not putting clear extra thin. I'm not doing anything. It is going to live like that. Once I mask and paint the frames, you'll see through the window, you'll see that panel, and that's how it's going to be. But you can now see when this gets glued into place, you've got the panel on the inside, and from the outside, you'll just see the back side of that panel against the clear windows. Not the best design. I feel like there's something missing there, but then again, to be perfectly honest, there is the little bench that sits right there, and there'll be a guy sitting there. So you know what? It's probably pretty close to accurate. I just feel like it's a bit of a janky way of doing it, but it is what it is. This side should fit without any problem. It's not as fat. The pins should seat. Yeah, relatively easy and just lives there quite nicely. So same thing. A tiny dollop of white glue on the inside of this. I feel like that's a bit too much, but I can't go back. And then, I want to make sure that those pins line up on the first try. I do not want, there we go. I don't want any smearing of the glue. See, that's the kind of stuff that can very quickly cause a build to go sideways. There we go. That's straight and level. And then when that goes in here, again, from the inside, you'll see that through the other side of the glass, because this side of the glass literally lives right here. So when you're looking up through the glass, you'll see the two windows, you'll see all that instrument panel inside. It's a busy little plane, I have to say. Yeah, so that's gonna sit aside. I'm not touching those at all until they are completely dry. I might even just take a pause here in the video, let those dry for a little while, come back a little later, and I think I'm actually gonna glue those clear pieces in place. As I said, I'm not doing any of the ammo cans until much, much later, until I'm just about ready to glue it together. These clear pieces I can put in at any point prior to the gluing together the fuselage. I just did that. Ammo cans aren't. I'm gonna glue that on soon. Everything on this side of the page is done, 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 ready to go, done, 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 ready to go. That's glued in. Those can go in later. Ammo cans are gonna go in later. That's all done. That's done. All of that is done. That's done. That's done. That's done. Ammo cans later. That'll glue on soon. That's ready to go. I can glue that in once everything else is done. The machine gun on the lower part, but that gets glued onto the clear pieces, I believe. Yes, that actually gets glued directly to the clear perspex. I wonder. I'm gonna see if I can fit that into place after the fact. Once I get the clear perspex glued together, I'll tape the fuselage together. I'm gonna see if I can feed that machine gun down through the upper turret and into place. And I think I can do it. And I just say that because painting is gonna be an absolute pain with that machine gun sticking out. But I think once all that is glued together, I should be able to feed that machine, oh my God. I should be able to feed that machine gun down through the open turret opening, which is right here. And if I'm using, where are all my angled tweezers? Huh, okay. Anyways, I'll use these as a demonstration purpose. If I have the machine gun and I feed it down through the opening, I should be able to tilt it and pop it into place after everything's put together and painted. I'm gonna test that theory once I actually get the fuselage together, but I think that's how I'm gonna do that, just to make my life a little bit easier in the painting stages. That machine gun I'm not putting into place. That I can do later. That's masking. That's right before assembly, and I need to mask it first. That piece I can glue the interior machine gun in place put that in, do the extra machine gun later. Yeah, like we are, I think that's it. We're getting really close. So we're gonna hang off, let these dry up nicely, be strong, perfect, no issues. Then I'm gonna glue these onto the sides of the fuselage, and then I can do a little bit of that other prep work. And then we're pretty much at masking. I need the masks. So we'll come back in a little bit. We'll finish this up, get all these little things off, and I think that might wrap up the video. So stay tuned. We've got a little bit more work left to go. Okay, we're getting close to the end of this part. I'm gonna do the next steps, which it's one of those moments in a kit where there's no going back. I'm gonna glue this clear perspex into the nose. Yeah. The fit is absolutely beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm afraid of doing something wrong and ruining this. But I'm going to do 3 little dabs of the Tamiya white, one in this corner, one up here, and one down there. That will, as usual, the way I do this, that will get the piece to tack into place, and then I'll go back with a little bit of liquid glue. Now, we're also lucky this has a pretty thick frame around the area where it touches the fuselage. So if there is the tiniest little bit of paint oozing, it won't ruin the clear part. So I'm just going to get that in there. I want it to bite on that white. There you go, hold in place. And we're just going to make sure everything is looking nice and straight. I don't want any wobbling, any movement in the side. That looks about perfect. And we're going to come in with a little bit of Tamiya extra thin. Not too much, and we're going to hit on the outside. That should, I'm going to hit the outside first, see how much it grabs, and then we'll go around on the inside if needed. I'm running into the same usual problem where the brush isn't actually holding on to any glue. That's a bit better. Get some down. Oh, you can see it. When you know it runs, you can see it. You can touch it and you'll see that, like, that glue run along the seam, and you know you've got a good amount in there. I'm going to go around the inside as well. Just not quite happy that that has a strong enough grab. So just come in here. I still have to worry about that seam around the front, but I will deal with that later. I'm worried that the piece slides up on that lip is not going to have a good joint because of that that step. But luckily I can get in there and sand that out later, but I want this. This is my first priority. Let's get a strong, solid joint on that part. The good news is too, is once I get the masking done and I paint the outside in the interior green color, when you look in, you'll see that green on the inside, and it should look really, really nice. So there, same thing as usual. I'm gonna let that sit. I'll probably hit it with some more glue again a second time before I'm happy with it. There's a few other things I want to prep when we come back. Like I said, I'll get a bit more done on this. Make sure it's got a nice solid joint. I don't want to move it too much. If it's still soft, I want what's there to bite. And then I'll come back and I'll flood the seam again and make sure it's got a nice strong joint. And then we'll do this one later. I do want to prep a few other things. I do need to prep all of those ammo cans. That needs to be done before I can assemble. And the tail wheel. Do I need to do the tail wheel? No, you know what? I think I'm still going to glue the tail wheel in after. I do need to prep some of the guns. I'm going to play around with this rear gun, but if the off chance I need it, you can't even see what I'm pointing at. I'm going to prep the, I don't need any of you guys either. I'm going to prep this rear gun and the off chance that I do need to install it before I assemble the fuselage, and I need to get the fixed gun that lives on this side. I need to get that prepared and painted. So if I want to paint one, I might as well paint two. I mean, I might as well paint all three. I'll get all the guns ready. I got to figure out what color I'm going to do it. I think I might still have some gunmetal in my Model Master enamel or oil-based. Yeah, enamel. Enamel. I can't remember which one's which. Anyways, oil-based. I'm pretty sure I have gunmetal in the oil-based colors still, so I will prep that. Now, interestingly, I did see something. I was watching, there's another YouTube video, for the life of me, I can't remember the channel off the top of my head, who was building this, and he ran into a similar, an issue that I'd never noticed before. And it's similar to the problem I had with this interior piece, where there was those two nubs that were sticking out that impeded the joint. And back here in the tail, there's also this little tiny nub that sticks out. I'll zoom in here just a little bit so you can see what I'm looking at. And I'm glad I actually watched his video. I just wanted to see if he was having some of the same issues I was having with those internal bits. There's this little nub. Let's see if I can get this in camera. Here we go. Right here, this little nub right here, and I don't know why it's there. If you look at the tail bulkhead, also it has the same two nubs sticking out that that panel had. Luckily, that's on the back side, and you don't actually see it. What I do need to do is figure out whether it goes with that little notch up or the little notch down. I think the little notch goes up, if memory serves. Let me find where you install the tail wheel. Here we go. Little notch goes, there's two notches. The open notch goes down. Okay, perfect. So the notch that's opened up goes down. So this fits in this way. I'll make sure I'm in shot. There we go. So this fits in this way. And that's all fine and well, but that little nub completely stops that bulkhead from sitting flush. And the only thing I could think of is it was designed to have a notch cut in this to ensure you had a positive fit, and there was no way of getting this installed upside down for anybody like me who wants to put the tail wheel in later. That's the only thing I can think of, but I can't fit this in. So I'm gonna have to go in there and cut that little notch out. Which isn't a big deal, except then I have to come back and touch up the paint and the weathering and all the other stuff I've done back here that now is a problem. I'm going to use a little, I don't even know what you call this blade. It's like a little chisel blade. And it allows me to get in here a little more square. And I'm just going to chisel that out and then scrape down flat. And I think that's it. I think I managed to do it. So that, as I said, that open notch goes down, and that should now, yeah, fit in there with absolutely no problem. And I should be able to glue, now try not to knock that clear perspex off the front that I just glued in place, but I should be able to, and I just realized I can fit that rear bulkhead in place after I glue the fuselage together. Look at that. I can get to it from up here. I don't have to glue that in at front. I can glue everything together and then drop the tail wheel in after the fact. You know what? I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to glue this tail wheel piece in until after I have the rear fuselage glued together. Although that might cause the seam to pop. So no, I will glue it in at the same time I'm assembling the fuselage. But I'm still pretty sure I can slip the tail wheel in after the fact and glue the tail wheel in after, so that allows me to get proper painting done. But yeah, okay, this is why you test fit, because you learn things. Anyways, again, I'm very glad I fixed that. Shout out to the channel. I'll try to remember to put the mention of it up when I'm doing my editing of this, because I would have not noticed that, and I would have been into a big problem when time came to assemble that. So anyways, on that note, let's go offline. Like I said, I'll get the guns, I'll get the ammo canisters, I'll get those prepped and ready to go, and we'll come back and glue the other perspex on here in a minute. And yeah, let's go back. Okay, so we're back. We're gonna get this next, excuse me, window glued in. Exactly the same as the other side. I'm gonna put a little bit of Tamiya white in this corner, and then a little bit up here, and then a little bit down here. And again, that's just gonna act as like a tack weld, hold that window in place, so I can come back and flood that joint with a little bit of the extra thin. So just gently get that placed in there. That looks good. Now we'll hit it with the extra thin. And like I said, the minute you get that extra thin in the joint, you can just, especially with a clear piece, you can just see it flood down that joint. And that's how you know you got enough in there. And then once I have all this in, I'll just give the clear piece just a little bit of a touch, just enough to just squeeze it in there a little bit, make sure it's got good seating and that glue is being spread out to the entire joint. And then I will let that sit. That looks really, really good. This other side has been sitting pretty much overnight. It's the next morning now since I did that. So it should be on there nice and tight, and you can see there. And it's also interesting, I think, part of the kit. There's only locating pins in this rear fuselage. This entire forward fuselage, there's no locating pins anywhere on here. I think it's just because of how much detail is on the inside of the fuselage. You would see the locating pins. So there isn't any of them. So that's part of the reason why I have so much trouble trying to put this kit together when I'm just holding it. But it will eventually, all the interior pieces will help line everything up. But you can start to see that Hampden look on the nose with all that glued into place. And even though it's a bit of a pain to get everything in, I think engineering wise, they made the right choice when they did it this way. It's a little different, but it seems to give the look we're looking for. So anyways, I'm going to hit this side. Do I want to hit this side again? No, you know what? That's a nice solid joint. I'm going to leave that side alone. And yeah, that's basically it. I think those are going to wait. I can't do much else until I have masks. So I think I'm just going to do the next easiest thing, which is trim these. These are the ammo cans. Get them trimmed off. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna paint these on here. It'd be very similar to how I did the little tiny black pieces in the cockpit from the earlier episodes. I'm gonna paint these steel while they're mounted to the sprue. And then after I trim them off and clean up the end, it's really easy just to touch up that little tiny sprue point with a brush. But this way I can airbrush the steel on all of that while it's on here. It's a lot easier to spray it like that. So I think this might be the end of this episode. We're gonna wrap it up. There might be a bit of a gap until the next episode comes out, episode 5, simply because, oh, you know what I need to prep? I need to prep the machine guns. That was the other thing I wanted to do. I knew there was 2 things I wanted to prep for the next video. Where are... There they are. Okay, so that's that. And then I think I said I want to prep all the machine guns, and I believe I need 2 of the loose ones, D61, and the rear gun, D60. So I need D60, D47, and D62. So 60, 62, and 47. 60. '61 I don't need. It can go into the spares bin. 60, 62, and 47. So those are the 3. Like I said, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to paint these. I got to figure out if I have gunmetal in my oil-based line, or if I'm going to... I'll figure that out later. Anyways, that's that. So these are all going to get painted offline. We'll come back at the beginning of episode 5. You'll get to see this stuff all ready to go. And I should, hopefully, fingers crossed, have my masks by then. And I can get these windows masked off before I get any farther into this process. And then I can work about getting the last of this little bit. I'm very close to gluing these fuselages together. So once I get this painted and I get those masked, I can get these rear windows in and get them masked, and then I'm starting to assemble things. So fun times. Might be the tiniest amount of flash on that window, or it's possibly short shot. I won't know until I get the clear pieces in. Anyways, yeah, so let's wrap it up here. This is the end of episode 4. Stay tuned for episode 5. As I said, bit of a delay. I'm going back onto shift. I'm back at work for the next couple of days, which does not give me a lot of free time to come home and do work on the models. And I need to wait for those masks to come in. So I'm not entirely sure when this episode 4 will release. It's going to drop while I'm at work on my rotation. And then when I come back on my days off, as I said, I'll sit back down and I'll get some more done on this. And so yeah, there might be a bit of a delay if you're watching these as they come out. Episode 5 will be delayed by a little bit, but as soon as I get those masks and I get a day at the desk, episode 5 will come out. So come on back for that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time.